The vote. The Harmony crown hung in the void like a promise, or a lie. 50 kilometers of gleaming metal and bioluminescent crystal, the station rotated slowly above a nameless moon in neutral space. Through its transparent observation domes, delegates from 200 worlds could watch the galaxy turn, a reminder that they represented something larger than themselves. Today, the council chamber at the station's heart felt smaller than ever. Ambassador Elena Ruiz stood in Earth's delegation pod, a crystalline booth that floated among dozens of others in the amphitheater-style chamber. Her hands gripped the railing hard enough to hurt. Below, on the central platform, Warlord Zethra of the Tsar Dominion paced like a predator, his crimson scales catching the light with each movement. Esteemed Council, Zethra's voice rumbled through the translation matrix, resonating in every language simultaneously. We do not bring accusations lightly. The evidence before you is absolute. A holographic display materialized in the chamber's center, enormous and impossible to ignore. Images cycled past, Lysaran vessels in suspicious formations, encrypted communications, what appeared to be weapons caches hidden in asteroid fields. The Tsar had been thorough. Too thorough. Elena's fingers flew across her datapad, running analysis algorithms her intelligence team had prepared. The metadata was wrong. The timestamps didn't match stellar drift patterns. Someone had fabricated these images with skill, but not enough skill to fool Earth's latest forensic AI. In a smaller pod to her left, she could see Ambassador Silverus of the Lysaran people. The elderly diplomat's crystalline skin, normally a soft azure that pulsed with inner light, had gone dim and gray. His people were bioluminescent, every emotion reflected in the glow beneath their translucent flesh. Right now, Silverus looked like death itself. These terrorists, Zephyros continued, his tail lashing, have planned coordinated strikes against 17 trade hubs. They hide behind a facade of pacifism while plotting mass murder. The Lysaran cannot be reasoned with. They must be neutralized before they strike. Neutralized. The word hung in the air like poison gas. Silverus rose, his voice trembling. This is madness. We are scholars, artists, engineers. We have no military. Our largest vessels are scientific research ships. These images, they are fabrications. Please, I beg the council to. Enough. The voice belonged to Chancellor Mordecai, a methane-breathing vril who presided over council sessions from a sealed environmental tank. Ambassador Silverus, your protests are noted. However, the Tsar have provided substantial documentation. The council must vote on whether to activate Protocol Voidfire. Protocol Voidfire. Elena had spent 3 sleepless nights reading the fine print of that particular legal nightmare. Established 2 centuries ago during the Kresh Wars, it allowed the Galactic Council to authorize complete extinction of a species deemed an existential threat to galactic peace. It had never been used. Until now. The vote will proceed, Mordecai announced. Each delegation will respond when called. A simple majority is required for activation. Elena watched as the roll call began. The Tentheri Collective voted first, a cluster of aquatic minds sharing bodies across 3 worlds. Their spokesperson, floating in a sphere of dark water, spoke without hesitation. Yes. The Kryn Unity, massive insectoids who controlled 60 systems. Yes. The Pelgard Trade Federation, shrewd merchants who valued stability above all else. Yes. One by one, the votes accumulated. Elena saw the pattern immediately. Every species that voted yes either had significant trade agreements with the Tsar or territorial borders that left them vulnerable. The Tsar had spent decades building this moment, creating a web of dependencies and quiet threats. Besides Silverus, the rest of the Lysaran delegation had gone completely dark, their crystalline bodies transparent as glass. They knew what was coming. Elena pulled up a secondary screen, reviewing the data her team had uncovered in the 72 hours since the Tsar filed their accusations. The Lysaran home system, 3 worlds orbiting a blue giant star, sat atop the largest deposit of luminite ever discovered. The mineral was essential for faster-than-light travel, and the Tsar's own reserves were nearly depleted. Their economy was crumbling. They needed that luminite. They also needed the Lysaran gone, a genocide for mineral rights, dressed up as counterterrorism and approved by committee. The sole delegation, Earth. How do you vote? Elena stood, acutely aware that every sensor in the chamber had focused on her pod. Earth was young by galactic standards, barely 200 years since first contact, a newcomer still learning the rules. Most species saw humanity as ambitious but weak, useful for innovation but not for power. She activated her pod's transmission array. No. The chamber erupted, not in outrage, in laughter. The chittering, rumbling, whistling laughter of species who couldn't believe what they'd just heard. The human delegate appears confused, Zephyros said, his voice dripping with contempt. Perhaps she misunderstood the question. I understood perfectly, Warlord. Elena's voice cut through the noise. I vote no, and I call this proceeding exactly what it is, a sham trial designed to justify theft and murder. The laughter stopped. Elena pulled up her own holographic display, broadcasting her analysis to every pod in the chamber. The evidence presented by the Tsar Dominion is falsified. Here are the metadata inconsistencies. Here are the stellar drift patterns that prove these images couldn't have been captured when claimed. Here, she highlighted a map, is the luminite deposit that the Tsar desperately need and the Lycaran happen to be sitting on. Preposterous, Zephyros roared. The human questions our honor? I question your solvency. Your economy is collapsing. You need those resources, and you're willing to murder 6 billion sentient beings to get them. Mordecai's voice boomed through the chamber. Ambassador Ruiz, you make serious accusations. Do you have proof? I have analysis, I have evidence of fabrication, and I have a conscience. Effective immediately, the United Nations of Earth offers full asylum to any Lycaran who can reach human territory. They will be granted immediate citizenship status and all protections thereof. We will defend them as if they were born on Earth. For a moment, the chamber was absolutely silent. Then Zephyros began to laugh. It was a terrible sound, like stones grinding together. The humans offer protection. You have what, 200 ships? Perhaps 300 if you count your pathetic colony defense frigates? The Tsar Dominion alone commands 6,000 vessels. You would stand against the galaxy for these crystal-skinned weaklings? Yes, Elena said simply. The voting continued. Yes, yes, yes. The results were never in doubt. When the final tally displayed, Protocol Voidfire had been activated by a vote of 184 to 1. As the session adjourned, Elena's communicator vibrated. A priority message from Earth, from the Secretary General herself. Get as many out as you can. We'll hold the line. Elena looked across the chamber to where Silver stood, his body flickering with faint, desperate light. She caught his eye and nodded once. His skin brightened just a little. Hope. In bioluminescence. 3,000 light-years away, in a system about to be marked for extinction, Dr. Kelhari received the emergency broadcast from Harmony Crown. He stood in his laboratory on Lycara Prime, surrounded by crystalline instruments that hummed with soft light, and listened to the galaxy condemn his species to death. His daughter, a tree, burst through the door, her young skin blazing with panic orange. Father, the vote! They're going to kill us, all of us! Kelhari pulled her close, his own bioluminescence pulsing with forced calm, even as terror screamed through his veins. I know, little light. I know. What do we do? He looked out the window at their city, spires of living crystal that sang in the wind. His people had built this over 3,000 years. They'd never harmed anyone. They'd contributed art, science, philosophy to the galactic community. And now they had 72 hours before the Tsar Armada arrived. He ran. Kelhari said the humans had offered us sanctuary. The humans, a tree skin flickered between orange and purple, fear and confusion. Father, they're so far away, and they're so small. They're also the only species who voted to save us. Kelhari was already pulling up star charts, calculating routes. Send out the emergency call. Every ship that can fly. Cargo haulers, research vessels, even the museum pieces. We evacuate as many as we can. The Tsar will hunt us, yes. Kelhari averted his daughter's eyes. But the humans said they'd protect us. And right now, they're all we have. Over the next 48 hours, the Lycaran mounted the most desperate exodus in modern galactic history. 10,000 ships of every class and condition lifted from 3 worlds. Families crammed into cargo bays. Scientists abandoned their life's work. Artists carried what they could and left the rest.
Kaler commanded a converted freighter called the Crystal Dawn, his daughter beside him, along with 3,000 refugees packed into spaces meant for a tenth that number. They had no weapons, minimal shields, and barely enough fuel to reach human space if everything went perfectly. Nothing would perfectly, as the refugee fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, streaking away from their dying worlds. Kaler watched his sensors. Shadow contacts appeared at the edge of range, Tsar hunter ships, pacing them through the dark, waiting, watching, ready to strike if the humans showed any weakness. A tree noticed them too. "They're hurting us. I know. Why don't they just attack now?" Kaler's skin flickered dark blue, the color of grim understanding. "Because they want to see if the humans actually fight. If they do, the Tsar learn their capabilities. If they don't," he didn't finish the sentence. "If they don't,
10,000 ships full of refugees would be easy prey." Through the view screen, Kaler could see the other ships of their fleet, running lights blinking in the darkness like a stream of fireflies fleeing an inferno. Behind them, their homeworlds burned. Ahead, somewhere in the vast dark, was a small blue world that had promised them safety. Kaler adjusted their course and prayed to gods he wasn't sure existed, that humanity's word meant something. That never again was more than just words. On Earth, in her apartment in Geneva, Elena Ruiz watched the news feeds and knew that everything was about to change. The refugee fleet was coming, and behind them, the galaxy followed. Never again. The images hit Earth's networks like a meteor strike. Lyceran children, their crystalline bodies dim with exhaustion, huddled in cargo bays designed for minerals, not families. Elderly scholars, their skin cracked and fading, sharing recycled water from emergency rations. Ships centuries old, held together by hope and improvised repairs, limping through hostile space while predators tracked their every move. Dr. Kaler had been broadcasting their journey, streaming it on open channels. A desperate gambit. If the galaxy saw them as people rather than statistics, perhaps someone else would help. Instead, it was Earth that exploded. Sarah Chen sat in her apartment in Shanghai, nursing her morning coffee when the first footage appeared on her screen. She was 78 years old, a retired teacher, and her grandmother had been a refugee from the wars of the 2040s. She recognized that look in the Lyceran children's eyes, the look that said home was gone and might never exist again. She donated a month's pension to the Refugee Relief Fund. By noon, the fund had collected 16 billion credits. In Lagos, a street artist named Chioma Okonkwo painted a mural 30 meters high, a human hand and a crystalline Lyceran hand clasped together, above the words, "Never again" in any language. Within a week, similar murals appeared in Mexico City, Mumbai, Moscow, and Sao Paulo. In Berlin, 2 million people marched to the Unity Monument, holding candles and signs. In Tokyo, programmers worked around the clock creating translation algorithms for Lyceran languages. In Buenos Aires, doctors volunteered for off-world deployment. In Ottawa, engineers jury-rigged atmospheric processors to accommodate crystalline biology. Earth remembered. They remembered the Holocaust, Rwanda, the Uyghurs, the climate migrations, the border wars. Every time humanity had said never again and meant it, and every time they'd failed. This time, they would not fail. In the classified depths beneath Lake Geneva, Admiral Jonah Price stood in a command center that officially didn't exist, watching holographic displays update in real time. At 61, he'd spent 40 years in the Terran Defense Force, most of that time overseeing projects that would never appear in public budgets. "Status report?" he said quietly. Commander Yuki Tanaka, his second-in-command, pulled up tactical displays. "The Lyceran fleet will reach the Sol system in 6 days. The Coalition Armada, we're counting 2,043 ships now, will arrive approximately 3 hours after them. Our fleet? 218 combat-ready vessels, another 64 with experimental systems that might work or might explode. We're pulling everything from the outer system patrols." Price smiled grimly. "What about the black projects?" Tanaka's expression shifted. "Sir, those haven't been fully tested. The Trinity cannon has only been fired twice, and the second time If we don't use everything we have, those people die." He gestured at a screen showing the refugee fleet. And if we let that happen, we're not who we say we are. Yes, sir. Price turned to his communications officer. Send the activation codes to Prometheus Station, the Lunar Shipyards, and Mars Defense Command. I want every experimental weapon system, every prototype, every mad scientist's dream that we've got. Bring it all online. Even Project Olympus? Especially Olympus. For decades, Earth had been building in secret. The official story was that humanity had a small, respectable defense fleet suitable for a minor power. The real story was more complex. After the first contact disaster of 2087, when a rogue Kryn warship had nearly obliterated Sydney, Earth's governments had quietly agreed on something unprecedented. They would never be helpless again. Old enemies had become partners. Resources that had gone to competing militaries were pooled. The brightest minds from every nation collaborated. And they'd built marvels. The Prometheus-class battleships powered by fusion cores that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Railguns that could punch through hull plating from 300,000 kilometers. The Trinity cannon, a weapon based on focused gravitational lensing that could theoretically crush a ship into a singularity. And Project Olympus, 12 artificial intelligence cores networked across Earth's defense grid, capable of coordinating fleet actions with precision no biological mind could match. They'd hoped never to use it. Price looked at the countdown timer. 5 days, 18 hours until first contact. All hands, he broadcast to every ship, every station, every base from Mercury to Neptune. This is Admiral Price. In less than a week, we're going to be asked to do the impossible. We're going to face an armada that outnumbers us 10 to 1. Ships will burn, people will die. And when it's over, Earth will never be the same. He paused, looking at the faces of his command crew. Men and women from Nigeria, Russia, India, Brazil, Korea, Germany, Mexico, and a dozen other nations that had once pointed weapons at each other. But those refugees are counting on us, and we told them they'd be safe. So we're going to stand, and we're going to fight, and we're going to show the galaxy what it means when Earth makes a promise. Prepare for combat operations. Price out. 6 days later, the Lycaran fleet limped into the Sol system on failing drives and prayers. Kelhari stood on the bridge of the Crystal Dawn, his daughter beside him, and stared at the blue world growing on their view screen. Earth, their sanctuary, or their tomb. Kelhari adjusted his course and prayed to gods he wasn't sure existed, that humanity's word meant something, that never again was more than just words. On Earth, in her apartment in Geneva, Elena Ruiz watched the news feeds and knew that everything was about to change. The refugee fleet was coming, and behind them, the galaxy followed.
Trinity cannon charging, Tanaka reported. 90 seconds to full power. The coalition fleet began its approach, confident and inexorable. They expected the humans to break, to plead, to negotiate. Instead, at a range of 400,000 kilometers, the TDFS Prometheus fired. The Trinity cannon didn't look like a weapon. It looked like space itself was folding, a sphere of bent light expanding outward at relativistic speeds. When it hit the coalition vanguard, 3 ships simply ceased to exist, crushed by gravitational force into objects smaller than molecules. The armada hesitated. "All ships, free fire," Price ordered. The human fleet opened up. Railguns launched tungsten slugs at percentages of light speed. Missile pods released clouds of smart-seeking warheads. Point defense lasers carved through space in geometric patterns calculated by Olympus to maximize probability of hit. The coalition returned fire, and the void became chaos. The Defiant took a direct plasma strike, her starboard side exploding in atmosphere and debris. She kept firing. The Zheng He rammed a Tsar cruiser when her weapons went offline, both ships tearing apart in a bloom of fire. The Ticonderoga sacrificed herself to shield 3 Lycaran refugee ships, absorbing fire meant for the helpless vessels. On Earth, billions watched the battle streamed across every screen. They saw their fleet dying to protect strangers. No one looked away. On the Crystal Dawn, Kylor held his daughter as the ship shook from nearby explosions. "We should help them," Atri said. "We have no weapons. We have minds." Atri was already at a console, broadcasting on engineering frequencies. "Human ships, our crystalline technology can enhance your shields. We're transmitting the harmonics now." Across the human fleet, engineers received the data. Lyceran refugees, scientists, technicians were offering their knowledge. Within minutes, ships began implementing the modifications. Shield efficiency jumped by 30%. The tide began to turn. Olympus calculated, adapted, learned. It found patterns in coalition movement, predicted strategies, countered them before they fully formed. The human fleet fought like a single organism, every ship supporting the others, no wasted motion, no hesitation. They were outnumbered 10-1, but they were defending home. 6 hours into the battle, something unprecedented happened. The Tenthari Collective, one of the coalition's largest contributors, withdrew their ships. Their spokesperson broadcast a simple message: "We did not agree to this. These are not warriors, these are refugees. We will not be part of genocide." Then the Pelgard Trade Federation withdrew, then a dozen minor species. The coalition was fracturing. Warlord Zethra watched his armada crumble and knew he had lost, not because the humans had beaten him, though he had, but because they'd done something more dangerous. They'd reminded the galaxy what honor looked like. "Retreat," he snarled. "All Tsar vessels, retreat to Rally Point Omega." The armada fled. In the aftermath, the human fleet floated in a debris field, damaged but unbroken. 73 ships lost, 8,412 casualties, and 10,000 refugees safe. Admiral Price stood down from combat alert, exhausted beyond words. Around him, his crew was crying, laughing, some doing both. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. 3 weeks later, Elena Ruiz walked through the integration facility in New Zealand, watching Lyceran families begin their new lives. Children played with human children, the crystalline kids glowing with joy. Scientists collaborated on research, artists created works that merged two species' aesthetics into something entirely new. She found Kylor and Atri standing on a hill, looking out at the ocean. "Ambassador," Kylor said, his skin cycling through colors of gratitude, "we heard about the memorial service for the humans who died protecting us." 8,412 names, Elena said quietly. "We remember them all. Because of us? Because of principle," Elena said. "Because never again has to mean something, or it means nothing." Atri was glowing bright green, the color of hope. "The Galactic Council is in chaos. 36 species are calling for Protocol Voidfire to be abolished. The Tsar Dominion is under investigation. Some of the delegates who voted yes are being recalled." "And us?" Kylor asked. Elena smiled. "You're citizens now, Earth's first interstellar citizens. Your people have full rights, full protection. This is home for as long as you want it." Kylor's skin blazed so bright, Elena had to look away. When she looked back, he was smiling, a very human expression on his crystalline face. "Thank you," he said, "for showing us what humanity means." Elena thought about the battles still to come, the political fallout, the species that would resent Earth's intervention, the long road ahead. But she also thought about the Lyceran children playing on the beach below, their bodies reflecting the sunlight in rainbows. "Thank you," she said, "for giving us the chance to prove it." Above them, in orbit, the human fleet was being repaired, new ships were being built. Earth had announced its intention to patrol the spaceways, looking for others who needed protection. The galaxy had dismissed humanity as weak, young, naive. They wouldn't make that mistake again.
And somewhere in the void, on 1,000 worlds, other refugees looked to the stars and wondered, if they ran, would Earth catch them too? The answer, humanity had decided, was yes. Never again meant never again. For anyone, anywhere. That was the promise Earth made to the stars, and the stars had learned humanity kept its promises.